Hello, everyone. The session is about to start, so please take your seats if you'd like to join the next Media Hub session. Welcome to the Internet Governance Forum here in Lillestrøm. My name is Zach Dans from the United Nations Department of Global Communications. I'm joined on stage by Ms. Salima Ba, Ministry of Communications, Technology and Innovation in Sierra Leone. I'm also joined by Ms. Justina Asishana from the Nation newspaper in Nigeria, as well as Ms. Kelisha Williams from Television Jamaica in Jamaica. Together, they will jointly be conducting the interview with Ms. Salima Ba. We are, of course, speaking to you from the 20th edition of IGF in Lillestrøm, Norway, convened by the United Nations Secretary General. We have an incredible 8,000 people joining us on site and online. The IGF has 150 plus sessions in the program. On Tuesday, we officially opened the IGF with leaders calling for action and cooperation in a rapidly evolving digital landscape, including a message from the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Yesterday, we had a lively panel in the plenary hall on AI and the future of work with government leaders, OpenAI, Meta, and actor and activist Joseph Gordon-Levitt. As you know, we have workshops and networking events taking place throughout the week, so please make sure to take advantage of these exciting opportunities. Now, let us hear from Ms. Salima Ba. Ladies, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Ba, for agreeing to do this interview with us. It's a privilege to have you here and to conduct this interview with you as well as and my colleague here, Justina. So I'm just going to jump right into it. As a woman and one of the youngest, or if not the youngest, government minister in Sierra Leone, how does it feel to be a part of your country's mission to play a leading role in tech export in Africa?
Thank you very much. It's definitely a pleasure to be here with both of you. Definitely also to be part of this conference. It's definitely a huge honor. It's a huge responsibility to lead this such a critical sector for not just the government of Sierra Leone, but really, to be honest, for the whole African region as well. If we think about the potential of technology, the digital economy to really accelerate our national development agenda, but the region-wide. So it's such a huge responsibility. I like to tease my colleague ministers that I'm the most important minister around, because actually technology plays a role in every other sector. So I get to intervene in the different sectors and be part of those as well. So it's a huge factor. I think being female as well, never shy away from that. I think it's a huge responsibility. I think it's about time that more women are given the opportunities. But actually, for governments such as Sierra Leone, I don't want to sound like I'm an outlier, actually. The government made a commitment to give over 30% representation right across board, and actually in cabinet we have over 40% female. So whilst I'm the youngest female, or the youngest in general, but definitely surrounded by other amazing women right across government, parliament, we see that reflected. But even though within the region as well, if we look at other ministers in this space, there's a huge female contingent, actually. And actually, we had females who would say have laid the pathway. For example, you have Sina Lawson, who's in Togo, who's been there for so long and has done amazing things. You have Paula, who's in Rwanda as well. They've all laid the pathway to where it's no longer strange to see myself being appointed in these roles, to see Emma, who's in Namibia, being appointed in these roles. And I do think actually, haven't taken a consensus on this, but I believe that actually within the region, the ICT ministers, it's a majority female. and majority young females. So we're definitely in a good company that way, and through that we support each other, we lean on each other. We're building a good foundation, a good network of where we can easily call each other up, ask questions, seek opinions, and really feel as if it's a community together.
And I'm sure it's an inspiration for other young girls, looking to join a field in technology. I'm sure it's an inspiration for them as well. Justina, you want to take the next question?
Yeah, I do. It's a very great feat for female in Africa, and it's a great stride. I hope more governments will try to implement this. So next, my question is that how do you balance the need for a digital transformation with the widening digital divide in the global south?
Sure. I think, actually just a couple of weeks ago, we had an annual tech conference in Sierra Leone. And even for a country such as Sierra Leone, there's been, over the past 10 years, there's been a huge prioritization of technology in terms of establishing new institutions, in terms of ensuring we have the right policies, in terms of driving investment into this space. And sometimes there's a question to be asked, actually sometimes, somebody actually did ask that question once, why for a country with so many competing priorities and so many other challenges, why are we focusing on technology? Why is this big push in technology? And I think maybe the question should be, we're too late, even if that's really what should be the growing concern, not why now. Because if we look at where the world is going, if we look at what the potentials are, we look at how technology is changing and evolving our everyday life and all across our life. If you think about our social interactions, if you think about our economic interactions, if you think about our political interactions, there's no sector in the world currently that technology doesn't play a role. And if we think about where, as a region, and obviously Sierra Leone being part of that, where we are now, we keep talking about we no longer want to be left behind, we want to catch up, we want to leapfrog, then it is just essential that every country, if they're not, they should be. There's an area where they should be prioritizing. So bridging the digital divide, ensuring that the most farthest and underserved have access to the online space, ensuring that we're driving accessibility and affordability for everybody, ensuring that people are growing up with these opportunities also, I think is important, ensuring that we're supporting the development of our own ecosystem. When we talk about, we no longer want to remain consumers of technology where we're always the end users, where we always buy. We actually want to be innovating and also seeing how we're scaling our own solutions for ourselves, for our region, but also outside of our region. So this is making sure, first off, it's a huge priority within our national development agenda and framework. It's one of the most critical aspects.
And speaking of access, I know for countries in the global south, I'm sure Sierra Leone and even Jamaica, my country, one of the greatest challenges I see in transitioning to this digital economy is the lack of infrastructure and resources. So how is your country addressing this?
Absolutely. I think when you can't talk about technology or digital transformation, infrastructure, the availability of infrastructure plays a significant role. And too many within that, you're talking about electricity being one critical aspect. You can't do digital transformation if you don't have regular, stable electricity. You're talking about the connectivity, your fiber backbone, and your fiber rollout has to be critical towards that. You're talking about devices, how we ensure that we're getting devices in the hands of people, and that is also critical in infrastructure. And for us, it's really, again, as I mentioned, the government, because we've made it such a high priority, we're driving investment into it, significant government investment. We're driving development partners to invest into this space. And we're also partnering with private sector. because we understand that government alone cannot do this. There's no government who's been able to really make significant strides within the space, and it's just government financing. So private sector participation is really key. So making sure as a government we're providing the right environment that would encourage private sector investments and participation in the key. And in Sierra Leone, I believe we're seeing the dividend from that. What we have, actually just a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we just launched the first 5G open access network in West Africa in Sierra Leone. So, and that was by private sector. So we're seeing the results from the strategy that we're implementing, where government, development partners, and private sector all play a role in investing in infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. We are in IGF. We are attending the IGF. So what role do you think the IGF play in supporting and providing a platform for developing countries and the Caribbean to transition to digital economy?
I think platforms such as the IGF, I think, are a great opportunity where you get all stakeholders, right? Government, development partners, private sector, civil society, to really come together and engage on critical issues, first, I think every year is an opportunity to look at what's been done well. Take stock of things that have been done, improvements that have been made, what's worked in different regions, and it's an opportunity to identify potential challenges. It's an opportunity to also have really hard discussions as well in terms of really critically how we look at how we improve. So I think having these platforms are amazing of bringing everybody together, but I think also the regional IGFs that also happen as well, I think are critical and I hope we give those also more leverage, because I think where we're able to regionally have quote-unquote internal conversations as well, I think are important. So maybe when we come to the big global platforms, we're more aligned on certain issues, and maybe we're pushing issues as a region sometimes rather than maybe individual countries advocating on their own.
And speaking of what works in other countries, your government talks a lot about making Sierra Leone the Estonia of Africa. What lessons do you think you can learn from Estonia and other countries in the global south can learn from Estonia in terms of building a digital economy?
Thank you. I actually don't think we say that specifically. I think we've talked about this idea of Estonia is amazing, by the way, and actually we've learned a lot from them. Like 5+ years ago, we took one of the very bold steps in terms of launching national innovation and digital strategy, and actually in launching that, our chief innovation officer then, who's actually now the chief minister, the prime minister of Sierra Leone, actually did a whole trip to Estonia with sector stakeholders and really looked at what they had, and we came up with a strategy which is heavily influenced by the Estonia framework in terms of setting up ourselves. But maybe why they attribute, that's what we're saying, is we talk about this idea of 5+ years ago of positioning Sierra Leone as a lab. I think when we look about the role we want Sierra Leone to play in this global space, I think every country has to decide what role you're going to play. I think because everybody's clamoring for space within this, this amazing ecosystem, I think as a country you have to define who you are and what role you're playing. I think, and there's several factors which go into that decision, right? You look at your country, the size of your country. I think that makes sense. You look at the positioning of your country, goes into that consideration. And Sierra Leone, one thing we spoke about is positioning Sierra Leone as an AI lab. What does that mean is we want to create an environment in Sierra Leone where we identify, we attract, we seed, we test, and we scale the brightest and the most creative ideas. We want to use Sierra Leone as a lab. We want to create this space where, and I think our size gives us that advantage, which you could say is similar to potentially Estonia, similar to Singapore. I think sometimes when a smaller country, It means you're more flexible. It means potentially it's easier to navigate. I think gives us an advantage of being able to play that role where we really attract within the region, we really attract the best and most creative, innovative ideas and minds to come to Sierra Leone, come develop their ideas and see it as an attractive space where they can really scale those ideas. So really, that's the concept we talk about when we say we want to create Sierra Leone as that space within the region where innovation can thrive, where innovation can be scaled. But I do think, and obviously in doing that, we've looked around, we look at different examples. Again, I remember I mentioned Estonia, an amazing example. Again, Singapore, amazing example. Ireland, amazing example. So I think there's so many others where more developing countries can look at and model what framework they want to adapt. But I do think the most important thing for any country, though, is to clearly define and identify what you want to be. And then I think you look at different models and see how you take different bits and pieces, and within that you can't directly replicate what's been done in other countries because our societies are different, our cultures are different, our context is different. So, but it's definitely important to look at best practices, but then just adapt to where you see your country, the role you want your country to play.
Okay, I think your country is really on track on what you're doing. I would like you to speak a bit about the project you just spoke about. You mentioned about the 5G open access. Can you speak more about it?
No, absolutely. I think we're super, super proud of that, actually. And why? Well, as a government, I say we'll take credit because the company who launched this was the company which won the government contract to manage our fiber cable. And I think it's a good example of a government partnering with private sector. We gave them the fiber landing cable to manage. They improved on the infrastructure we gave them. We've seen them expand and double down on their investments in Sierra Leone. I think sometimes within the region, sometimes we suffer from people coming in, taking and going away somewhere else. But I think it's a good example of a company that's taken government assets, built on top of it, but actually is expanding their reach. So super excited, the 5G open access network. We had one or two of the other telcos also launching 5G, but it was closed. It's a closed network. And if you think about really potentially not duplicating efforts, if you think about leveraging on existing resources, I think that's an open access model. I think is an amazing potential, because I think His Excellency, the President, mentioned it when we were launching, and in his message to the other sector players is the hope that they leverage on the investment that has been made by this company to tap into that, rather than this need of they have to build their own, which means that they were going to maybe resources that they could have used to maybe improve on their network. They're going to go replicate something that's been done already, and then which would mean they're pushing that cost potentially on the consumers in Sierra Leone. So really something we try to protect, to make sure that let's leverage on that. Let's improve it where we can. Let's make sure it's fair for everybody. But if all the players can tap into that, and we think that's why the open access, we're really proud of it, so that we can accelerate our digital transformation and agenda and make sure that prices are affordable for citizens as well.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that's all the time we have. I know I'll hand over back to you, Zach. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we're going to open the floor now to any questions that you have for Ms. Salima. If anybody has a question, please raise your hand. And if you're from a media outlet, please start by stating your name and the media outlet that you're from.
Thank you very much. My name is Jean Dodion Kumasabo. I'm from Burundi, East Africa, and I work for Burundi News Agence. I have two questions. With the rise of cyber crime across the continent, what coordinated steps should Africa governments take to strengthen cybersecurity and protect citizens online. Second, as Africa advances in AI and emerging technologies, how can we ensure that innovations reflect our local realities, languages, and values? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think definitely on the first one, I think cybersecurity is a huge aspect when we think about our digital transformation agenda. So I think first of all, in terms of countries, I think you have to set up dedicated frameworks to address this. I think, we keep referring to it's like bees to honey. The moment a country starts transforming from paper-based to digital, you're attracting the bees to yourself. So as much as you're moving towards a new system, we know the cyber crime is a big business for people. So you have to ensure that you have systems in place. And I think maybe one of the things towards that as well is maybe looking at your cyber positioning. I think sometimes countries within the region tend to be a bit more reactive. We're set up in a way to react to potential attacks or to react to potential threats. I think we need to change that positioning slightly to be proactive, to change our readiness stance, to be proactive, to be preventative of these. So I think that's been critical. I think capacity building is a big aspect, and I think you get to really think about so many sectors that need the skill sets and the capacity to be able to handle this. You need the law enforcement, you need the judiciary, the court system to be able, you need your judges to understand the cyberspace and the cyber offenses. You need the lawyers to be trained. You need the police to be trained. And you need the technical experts as well. So it's a huge investment. I think so it's a side-by-side investment, I would say, for countries. As much as you're investing in digital transformation, you should be equally investing in your cyber protection systems. AI is a big, I actually say it might be the one thing that fears me. It gives me a huge fear when we talk about the digital divide, in the sense that I do believe it's the one thing that would really and potentially close the digital divide, but it could also be the one thing that widens it to a position where we can never get back. Because if we look at and maybe to the point of, I think people like to say AI for the future, but it's not the future. AI is already here, it's already happening, and it's already impacting. In the region, I think we tend to feel as if we don't know or we don't recognize that it is. If you think about social media, how our social media space is being managed, that's through AI, and potentially the algorithm recommendations are not trained on data sets that reflect us. But we see the huge social impact and social influence that has been done through those recommendations. So it's already impacting us. And we think about, I was having an interesting conversation with my Minister of Education on what we're going to do with the ChatGPTs, OpenAIs, and DeepSeeks of the world. How we're going to make sure that our education system is set up in a way that, and again, it's not about stopping it, because you can't. I think same thing of when the calculator came and they told us we couldn't go into examination halls with calculators because people think they can stop technology. You can't. I think it's about learning how you live with it. So how do we ensure our education system is set up in a way that kids can take advantage of these platforms, but we make sure that when we're doing assessments, we make sure that it's something we're thinking about and working around. So I do think huge potential. I think just on how we ensure that it reflects our context and our realities. Again, might be long-winded, but I take the example of, especially for our region, when previously, because we didn't have access to the global media space, other people told the stories of what Africa was. Maybe might not be the most politically correct, but people would think, oh, Africa, the kid with the malnutrition, flies on their face, and everybody, that's the image of what everybody thought Africa was, because that's what was shown what Africa was, right? I take the same example with AI as well. It's going to be the one thing that's going to tell everybody who people are, who we are. So if we don't ensure that our data is reflected, we're participating in the LLM models, and we're ensuring that when these systems are designed, it's with us in the room, and we're also participating and contributing to this, I think we'll be also coming back in the next 20 years and trying to, again, to clean up or address the imagery of who we are. So I do think it's something as governments, as civil societies, as media, as private sector, I think even with our partners as well, I think it's something we all should really take critically and work towards.
Thank you. We have time for one more question, if anybody has one. If not, then thank you so much, Ms. Ba, for sharing your insights. Thank you, Ms. Asishana and Mrs. Williams, for sharing your expertise as well. And thank you to everybody who joined us here in person as well as online. This interview was streamed, and it can be viewed later on UN Web TV. Please join us tomorrow for our final Media Hub interview of the IGF of this year. Thank you. This concludes our session.